Hey, what's up, everybody? This is your host, Darron Brown. I have Dominic with me. He's a relationship and reality architect. I have never heard of that, but I have a good idea of what he may do. Dom, can you give us an idea of what that title encompasses?
Yeah, essentially, I help people get what they want. So, my clients come to me and say, like, I'm here, say point A, and they want to be at some point B. And so when I say I'm a reality architect, they're experiencing a current reality and they want a different one. So what I'm helping them focus on is how to create that new reality, essentially by focusing on how they see themselves and the current thoughts, beliefs that are hanging out in their head. And very key on this side is like taking action. So it's not enough to have like the good idea. You have to take action. So I help people not only identify what the actions are, help them figure out which ones are going to work for them, and I get them to take it.
And what do clients usually come to you for? Like, what do they usually need help with?
Oh, so reality. So a lot of times it's going to be relationships, particularly women are coming for relationships, and that can be intimate, partner, boyfriend, husband like relationships, or it can be relationships that they're having, say, with their friends, coworkers, a boss, um, basically anything where they may not be feeling, say, confident. They may be feeling some low self-esteem in some things, or they're just frustrated. They've been getting the same results for a while,
Yeah.
and they want different results. And so when I work with men, some are interested in relationships. Many of them are interested more in things like power, status, or I would say maybe it wouldn't be their terminology, but that's what I'm tracking with them. They're working on being more grounded in their masculine, or just really understanding what masculine is for them and coming from that place.
I looked at your Instagram page and said you were a relationship coach for women. Like you work with women primarily. Was that intentional or did it just happen accidentally?
Well, if I had known more about the work, I would have said it was not accidental, because in terms of people who hire coaches, psychotherapists, therapists, for self development, it's going to be more women than men in general. So it's I've come to discover almost anyone in this field, unless they particularly hone down on one or the other, they're going to be encountering like women. So at the point I decided to say, well, let me keep focusing on the clients that tend to come to me the most. I discovered that time they were women, and that they were focusing largely on relationships. The reason I bring the reality side in, though, is that it's not just that. I would say a lot of women, they're looking for more love and connection, but a lot of that is really going to come from the relationship that they have with themselves. And so
Mm,
that's why I start saying reality. It's a lot of times what they're experiencing is just not working for them. Or here's a typical case. Um, I think my clients, by and large, are high achievers. They've gotten the education they wanted, they've gotten the position they wanted, they're more or less making the money that they want. But so they've gotten the things that they thought they should have, or did the things that they thought they should do, but yet the happiness isn't there. In fact, if anything, it feels like getting more what they thought they should get has brought them less and less fulfillment, less and less happiness.
I see. I see. There's definitely a lot of guys on the internet that are giving women a hard time because they make women look like they're robots and basically they're users. But in reality, both of us are the same. We know both people are men and women both can use each other. Um, what I'm wondering is what issues do women commonly deal with when it comes to relationships? They come to you with.
Yeah. Just wanted to go back and give a comment. It's a lot of fun, right? Kind of taking the digs at the other gender.
Yes.
Like, I get a lot of chuckles, and I also try to do my best not to just stay in what I call like the cheap yucks or the cheap thrills.
Hmm.
There's one phrase like, men are in love, women are in business, and so there's countless statements like
Yeah.
that. But I agree with you, like you say. we all have things that are working to our benefit, and
Mhm.
we all have things that are challenging to us. So I think the better place to be, rather than taking pot shots at the other gender, is just say, you know what, the most productive thing for me to do is just become the best possible person I can, and that will solve pretty much everything.
That
So
takes. I'm going to comment on that. Becoming focus on becoming the best version of yourself. That takes a lot of. You really have to be conscious to like make that kind of evolution in your life. Because I personally, within my relationships, I've been I've been a user and I've been used. And I've just come to realize once you go through pain, it helps you grow, it helps you mature. And I realize if you're going to not only with relationships, but anything that you do outside in your life requires great investment. So you got to make sure that you're giving and you're receiving at the same time.
yeah, yeah, for sure. And as you said, you have to be really conscious. I would say the backdrop drop of what I'm working with my clients a lot is I'm helping them become more conscious. And so it's not like an IQ thing. I'm not helping them become smarter. I'm helping them become more conscious. And so I would say what happens along the way is that they become wiser, but they're also uh, making decisions more focused on the outcome that they want to have, like what they want to gets back to reality. What do they want to create in the world? Do they want to create more connection, more intimacy with their partner? Do they want to have more win-win situations in life? Are they happy if like they're the winners and other people are losers? And so I really love that word you said, being conscious, because there's this phrase a lot of times my clients will use, I will use, called like, doing the work. and and the work is exactly that. It's like you start becoming aware of, well, I can go down this path, or I can go down this other path. And you yourself had said, I've been the user, and I have been used. And so like now you're in a position of recognizing both. You know when you're using people, and you also know when you're being used. And you can choose to participate in that or not, or you can say, I want something else. I want
Mhm.
something different. Yeah, very, very much so.
Do
Uh,
you do a lot of your female clients struggle with walking away sooner? Because a lot of these red flags that we get in relationships, I mean, that we see, that we see within our relationships, people gave us those signs early on in the relationship, and you could have saved yourself a lot of heartbreak down the road. So, do you teach your clients the importance of boundaries and then knowing what you want and only creating space for what you want?
Yeah, it's one of the most important things. I say boundaries, like that in a nutshell is a key thing. I would also say standards as well. I think a lot of times that gets left off the table. But if you think about like a restaurant, like you will eat at a restaurant and you will give the restaurant repeat business, like if it meets your standards, if it continues to meet your standards. But as soon as that place doesn't meet your standards, then you're likely going to leave. Maybe you might give feedback to the manager or something. And so I
Mm,
think that's the same thing with relationships. I do think a lot of women like stay too long, um, and they do what I call like they like to date on credit, meaning they see their partner's potential, or rather they see a potential that they perceive, maybe not their partner doesn't have it.
yeah.
And so they give them that credit. And so they says, well, I know you're going to grow into this. Like I know you're going to be more attentive. I know you're going to be more present. I know you're going to be more thoughtful. I know you're going to make more money. And what they're doing, so but because I know that, I'm going to date you on credit and just wait for you to grow into it.
Uh-huh.
And it's hard to say never, but I typically say never date on credit.
Yeah. It's the interest, a person's interest level can really tear them apart. You can convince yourself of many different things in a relationship about a person that you want to be with. You can tell yourself all kinds of lies and stories to justify the sacrifice or the investment. And I'm glad that you focus on these women specifically, because currently on YouTube, they tend to focus on women who are just trying to get the bag. They're using men for X, Y, and Z. But I know a lot of women personally who fall into the category that you're talking about.
Yeah.
They are successful. They're ambitious. They're organized. They know how to plan for the future. But then they get with these guys, these builder guys or something, some guy that they could like, make him into something because they made a decision at some point that this is going to be a guy. I like his vibe, and he has so much potential, and that he never reaches. I've known
Yeah.
women who wasted 7 years plus on guys, like a lot of them,
Yeah.
on guys like that.
Yeah. And it creates a lot of pain along the way, but a lot of pain at the end because any relationship is going to have you'll have vision, you'll have dreams of the future, and I
Hmm.
want to stay away from the word expectations. It's not really my favorite, but it's like you have desires, wants that where this relationship will go, and when that doesn't get fulfilled, especially after such a huge time investment, it can be tremendously disappointing. And then, of course, depending where a woman is at, there's like a time factor, if especially if she wants to have children. So I think it's really important for, I mean, men and women, but for everyone to get to know what they want up front. And that kind of comes with those boundaries, but that's also like those standards. And when you come across a person who's has a lot of potential, is really great, but isn't currently meeting your standard, I think at that point you should seriously consider moving on.
That's very hard to do when you have those romantic feelings for somebody to move on. When it's weird. Human emotions are put like this. There's certain emotions that we experience in our life that we become familiar with and we know how to handle. But the emotion of like love is so rare. You rarely meet people that really move you in a certain kind of way. So
Mhm.
because you rarely have experiences with that kind of emotion, it takes you just a lot longer to mature in that area of your life, of your personality. Some people get bitter, some people get better, but that's love is one of those tricky emotions to deal with. I want to know, why did you choose to focus on relationships?
It I think bottom line, I enjoy it. I've spent a good amount of time working for other people, being employed by others, and uh, overall, I can say of that experience, I'm thankful. I was exchanging my time for money, had the great experiences, learned a lot, and when I ventured out on my own, my decision was, well, I'm doing this not necessarily for the money. I'm doing it because it holds my interest more, or I think this is fun. And I would say the reason I find working on relationships fun is because I think it's really one of the most complex things that you can deal with, like on this planet, as a human being. And again, the people I'm working with, they did the schooling, they're working, at top levels in their career, and yet with all that intelligence, like they're still not able to nail just having satisfying relationships, or they're not able to avoid getting a relationship with someone where they feel used, or they feel like taken advantage of. And so I think the relationship, it's like a container, and within that container there are things available to a person. And so school is a different container, and so if you're in grade school, there's certain things available, certain things not. You're in college, again, certain things available, certain not. And the same with relationship. But I think the intensity of like the learning process in a relationship, especially if we're trying to have like a long-term committed one, it is the exact furnace, or oven one needs to have the maximum amount of self-development, as long as you use it correctly. So the wrong way would be, you get upset, you get triggered, you look at your partner and say, you make me angry,
Yeah.
you make me upset, you make me feel bad. If you're doing that, you're not benefiting in terms of the learning aspect of your relationship. But if you look at it more, well, I see myself angry, or I see myself enraged, or I see myself feeling shame, my partner is helping me identify these emotions in me that are holding me back, and be actually behind those emotions, there's like a belief, either some the way someone sees themselves, or sees or has a belief, and because that belief is essentially trampled on, then the trigger comes and the person feels the way they don't want to feel. And so it's kind of like Mike Tyson had this statement, everyone has a plan till they get hit in the face.
Yeah.
In relationship, to a certain extent, you're getting hit in the face all the time. And so you want to become trained and used to that experience, because it's not going to not happen. I mean, it's going to happen. It's going
When
to
they
happen.
have
And so when it does, you have to say, oh, there it is again. And
so so I got a question for you. So when those experiences do happen, things can be going smoothly and all of a sudden there's some kind of static that enters a relationship. How should somebody address these these potential issues that can and have negative effects on the relationship long term?
yeah, well, there's a few things. I think one of the most helpful things, it's almost like the emergency tool, is just take a pause. It's just take a pause, and then you just realize like you're feeling something, and know when you're overwhelmed, and say, you know what, I can't I can't really talk about this right now. I'm feeling very emotional. I'm feeling super triggered. I'm feeling really angry at you, and that's not the place I want to be in when we have a conversation or when we interact. So I need to get myself sorted out. So I think the pause is super important, and I can't underline the importance of that enough. So one way to take a pause is just like a breath. So you regulate yourself a little bit. Another is just like I said, you actually tell the person, communicate. Or another way is just saying, hey, I can see this is really important for you, or this is important for us. I just don't feel now is the best time to get into it. Can we discuss this at this date and time? So that's one way of doing it. The other one, it's a certain frame that you enter into. And so I like to think becoming more and more conscious is just choosing different lifestyle choices. So, if you smoke and you drink, those are lifestyle choices. If you don't smoke and you don't drink, those are lifestyle choices. They have different outcomes. Same as
Mm,
you're like vegan as opposed to like meat eating. They just have different outcomes. And so if you want to be in relationship and not be like reactive, one of these lifestyle choices is just you step into this frame of, I'm 100% responsible for everything that's going on in my relationship. You just tell yourself, you say, I'm 100% responsible. And so, if my partner is yelling at me, like, I'm 100% responsible for what I'm experiencing right now. So now, once you step into that, then it's kind of like you have the opportunity. I think your focus is in the right place, which is like you're focused on yourself and what can you do different. And so that may mean, this is not the right partner. It could mean that, or it could mean, well, am I showing up the way a good partner should show up? So it doesn't even have to say, am I showing up like the way I should? It's just like, if if there's something called a good partner, how would a good partner show up? And am I doing that? That's
mhm.
one way to approach that. Um, I think additional things. It has to do a lot with putting yourself kind of in service to the other person. It's a level of humility. It's saying, what can I do to shift this, or what can I do to help this person feel better? And I want to nuance that, because there's like stepping stones to getting to that. It's easier to be in service to someone else, or to be more attentive
Yes.
to their needs after you've taken care of your own needs.
Okay.
And I think, speaking of women, a lot of women do this incorrectly. They do it a different order. They say, well, I just love everybody. I just want everyone to be happy. And you hear them make statements. I do all these things for all these people. No one appreciates me. Or I do all these things for my partner, and he still like walks all over me. And I think what I found typically in those cases, the person's not taking care of their own needs first. And we can build up from there. Food, clothing, shelter. Basic needs. Do you have that? And then, are you getting your sleep? Are you getting your exercise in? Are you eating good food? Are you making commitments to yourself and keeping them? That's like super important. So basically, once your combination of conscious, psyche, subconscious understands that you prioritize yourself, meaning that you think you're important and that you are setting a standard and you are holding boundaries for yourself, it makes you much, much more available to show up in that way for a partner, where in a place where your cup is full or more full, where then you are resourced, or you have resources to actually have the patience and the compassion to listen to them, and also not to just be reactive to whatever they're
Yeah.
putting in front of you at the time.
It's funny that you can give that same advice to men. A lot of men, they have the issue. Well, society tells men that they have to be the breadwinners. They're supposed to be the leaders of the household, and they're supposed to, do all these different things. And a lot of men on the internet that are in the same position, they're complaining that they're giving and they're not getting anything in return. So I say that to say this: I think that both men and women who fall into these situations, they need to learn to spoon feed themselves. A lot of times they're trying so hard to make a relationship work, or they're investing a lot more than they should be investing early on. And they
Mhm.
should learn to, give, but give in like small
Yeah,
doses over a period of time, and see if it's reciprocated, how the person responds to it. Are you appreciated? Because once you give so much and much, your expectations go up, and
yeah,
then you're setting yourself up for failure.
yeah, yeah. It's kind of, you set the bar up here, and so the person is always expect that. If the first birthday, you've bought all the balloons and laid all the roses, and drew the bath and put the bubble bath in it, like,
Yeah.
what's going to happen on the next birthday, or the next like special event. um, I'm curious what your thoughts on this, since you said men need, or can use the same guidance.
Yes.
I would i would say yes, and um, sometimes leadership is a thankless job. And by that I mean, a lot of times you hear masculine energy, men will lead, they'll take charge. And you'll
Yeah.
hear a lot of women say, I want my man to lead me. I want him to like take charge and like have a plan, plan out the evening, like order for me.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think, if you just look at leadership in general, there's if there's a leader, there's a follower, there's followers. And
Yes.
typically the number of leaders are much smaller than the number of followers.
Yes.
It's not equal.
Yeah. I
And
know.
and as a man, I enjoy being led by a good leader.
Hmm.
I think we all do. And as a man, I hate being led by someone who's a bad leader.
Yeah.
So I think if someone is stepping in that role of leading, and I think in this case we're saying, if women have the desire for men to lead, we also acknowledge that like stepping that leadership role is a responsibility. You are automatically saying, I'm going to take responsibility for other people. I'm going to put other people's needs in front of my own. And so we make it very specific. I'm going to put my partner's needs in front of my own, or like I'm going to put myself in service. And you'll hear things in terms of like a great leadership style is a servant leadership.
Hmm.
So in the organization, yes, you have the authority. You're the top box in the org chart. People have to do what you say, so to speak. But the thing is, you're really focused on how can you be of service, of utility to the people on your team. And so I think in relationship, I think that's a great way for a man to show up in that leadership role. And yes, I would say he does need to nourish and build himself up too. So he's learned leadership,
So
and he's,
what's the question you got for me? You said you had a question for me.
oh, it's in there, right? So yeah, yeah. So your thought, I'll get specific. So yes, men need this guidance. But at the same time, do you feel that men are actually getting enough credit for leading or even attempting to lead?
No, I don't. I don't think men get enough credit, and I don't think men expect to receive credit. We're taught to be self-sacrificing. You think of war, men go to war, they die, the women, the kids are live. Same thing, the Titanic sinks, the men are sacrificed. So I think men unconsciously are self-sacrificing themselves for a relationship and for family. And I think that a lot of the mental issues that men deal with are rooted in the lack of appreciation, not
Mm.
only from the appreciation you get from other people, but the lack of appreciation that you have for yourself because you were never taught to have self-respect, be yourself, you're good enough, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah. Adding on to that, um, I didn't read the book, but I think maybe it's called Love and Respect or something. But the gist of the title, it was saying that what women desire most in relationship is love, and what men desire most is respect. And
Mhm.
I've also heard, even though this is what they want the most, neither of them ever get enough. And so I thought when you said, men are not respecting themselves, I think that was a really good point because it's kind of, if you want someone to love you, then of course it's a great idea, maybe crucial, essential for you to love yourself first and figure that out.
You nailed it. You nailed it. I was thinking about this today, and I think that the biggest issue that men deal with, like the number one advice that I would give men in relationship is not to lose yourself within that relationship.
Mhm.
The person you were before her is the person she wants you to be throughout that relationship. But a lot of times, you I don't know what it is. It can be the media, it could be the family household you grew up in. But a lot of times men, once they do get in a committed relationship, over time they start to become dependent on that relationship and dependent on the approval of their woman. And that's when the woman starts to disrespect them. Like you said, men need respect. Men need respect. But once their spirit and their mind gets tied into that relationship and they stop focusing on their purpose or whatever,
Yeah.
women are like women have an instinct for that. And they
Yeah.
know once they got
The
you.
antenna goes up.
And
Yeah.
that's when they start poking at you to see, I don't know how strong you are, if you'll set boundaries or if you'll go back to who you were, who she thought you were, you know?
Mhm. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah. I wanted to add to that because I love what you said. Men have to respect themselves, and so I'm thinking, not only do you have to like love yourself, but if you're seeking respect and you want to be respected, you have to respect yourself. Meaning, you have to acknowledge the effort that you're putting in, and um, I would say it's you not only put the effort in, but like really acknowledge what you're doing because you're right. That acknowledgement externally to you may never come. That
yeah.
appreciation may never come. That thank you may never come. But
Mhm.
if you keep track, you stay conscious with what you're doing and you're putting the effort in, I think it gives you enough fuel, or let's say even enough resiliency to say write out those moments where you're like, well, wait a second, I did all these things. You
Mhm.
didn't even say thank you, or like you just went on to the next thing of like, um, you keep focusing like on
And
what
you
I haven't done.
and
You know,
you need exactly, and you need to pay attention to that as a man and women. You need to pay attention to that when you're in a relationship and you're giving to somebody. You need to be very cautious of what you're getting in return because some people show appreciation, they'll give back to you, but there's some people who will start to feel entitled to that and then start to take advantage of you and then take you less serious, you
yeah,
know.
yeah,
It's weird. In some cases it's like when a woman knows she has you, she'll she'll get bored of you and then go to the next challenge. Men
yeah,
probably are the same way too. I wouldn't know, but that's how it happens. You have to maintain a strong sense of self in all phases of life.
mhm,
Period. Once you lose
yeah,
yourself, you'll get bullied. I mean, I had a situation before where I'm 6'3", I'm 220. I played ball growing up. I mean, I played college football, And I've had situations where I let things slide because a guy was about 5'4", not really, he didn't threaten me at all. But
Hmm.
just letting that situation slide, it made other guys that had no business mess with me. Gave them
Yeah.
confidence. So
Yeah.
I learned, and I was just like, because I'm trying to be the nice guy. I don't want to be too aggressive because I already look aggressive and I'm built aggressively. But I learned that you have to set bound. People are going to try you. Period. So you have to maintain a strong sense of self.
Yeah.
Your friends are going to hurt you. Your family's going to hurt you. Your lover's going to hurt you. Your kids are going to hurt you. You better stay. You better be straight with yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. And as you say that, I have the curiosity of asking you, because I really try to encourage my clients, never say something you don't want to be true. And so I hear what you're saying. And so part of me wants to agree, and then part of me doesn't want to agree at all, and says,
Mm.
you say, your partner is going to hurt you, relationships are going to hurt you. Because I, I'd love to think more and just walk around with a belief system such that it becomes true in my world. It's that my relationship will expand and fulfill me. My friendships will be filled with trust and joy, or something like that. And the reason I bring it up, I do work with different healing modalities, and there's one called theta healing.
Mhm.
So I've taken a lot of coursework in it, and one of the things that they say is, um, well, it's actually all about belief work. And so a lot of times what they'll work with for people are on money stuff. And so they'll go through people's money beliefs. And a lot of people have beliefs, well, money's hard to come by. There's never enough. Uh, Money's the root of all evil. And it's, it has, those thoughts have certain energies. And so when you're able to replace those more of like, uh, money is easy to come by. Great and friendly and wonderful people have money and do great things with it. I do think it creates more flow.
Is
And
this more
so,
talking about affirmations?
not necessarily affirmations. It's so if you think of your subconscious, well, conscious and subconscious, the thinking is like 95% of your life is ruled by your subconscious. It's the things in your mind that you're not aware of. And so, but you're still operating on those. And so, like again, like, so one of those beliefs, you may not know, or a person may not know, they're walking around with the belief money's hard to come by,
Yeah.
until they come across someone who says money's easy, like money just rains on me. It's like, I close my eyes, money appears. And and when you see that contrast or hear it, it may be something where you can pinpoint yours, where you say, well, what's my belief about money? And just asking that question, it's like you can pierce that layer between the conscious and subconscious. You can say, oh, that's my belief about money. So it's not so much an affirmation. It's really a changing out. It's almost like a retooling or like a reprogramming. And so you find that belief in there. And the way this modality works, it's kind of like it's a cancel, clear, delete. This is a statement. And you know let's download this other belief.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the thing is, like, when I first heard about it, I said, well, this is nonsense. So
Mhm.
many things in my life I come across, I said, this is nonsense at first. And then after spending some time with it, I was like, oh wow, this is genius, or this is precisely what people need. Because whether one says theta healing is a valid healing modality or works or not, for sure, I'm convinced your life is really just a summation of how you see yourself and what beliefs that you have. And
Mhm.
so, I remember
Let me
just
comment. Let me comment on what you just said. I agree with you. I have a book behind me called "The Seat of the Soul" by Gary Zukov. It's an amazing book. Something that Oprah recommended. And I've done a lot of spiritual work over the last decade. And it's changed me in ways I didn't even expect to be changed. I just reading the book to read it. It was like, oh wow, these books
Mhm.
are powerful. So I completely agree with what you're saying. But that being said, I also believe that when it comes to love, you know, these people that I mentioned, like family, friends, lovers, children, like these are people you love, and these people, occasionally you're going to have people who are going to try to hurt you, but it's up to you to protect love, because there's going to be all kinds of things that come into your relationship. And if you allow things to slide within your relationship and you don't protect love, love starts to fade away. So that was the big major point of what I was trying to get at, is that, you know, um, you have to maintain a strong sense of self in all areas of life. I had a conversation with a friend of mine almost a year ago, and I was seeing somebody, and I don't know what was going on, but I was really down, right? And spoke to
Mhm.
my boy about it. I was like, man. And then the next day, like, she did something, and then I was up and high again. And I had to call my friend, right? And I called him, I was like, hey, man. I was like, hey, what I just learned is that you cannot place your happiness on, you can't be somebody's puppet. It
Mhm.
wasn't even conscious that she wasn't even conscious of what she was doing. This was all in my head. i
Mhm.
gave away I gave away that power. you know
Yeah.
that's really the truth. I was fixated, and I
Mhm.
told my friends, like, you know what, you can never be your happiness should never be dependent on somebody outside of you. You know what I'm saying? You should make yourself happy.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's true, and I think that also is what I say kind of becomes part of this constant meditation in life, because some things but you have to keep present all the time, because I think particularly with the partner, the temptation is always there to say, "Well, I feel this way because of you,"
Mhm.
and I feel a lot of times, no matter how much I can consciously know that, I have to do whatever I can to embody it. So when, like, I do get triggered, I'm saying, okay, like, I know what I'm feeling, and I know I want to say, I'm feeling this way because of you, but I'm not going to go that route. I'm going to focus on myself, and then also tell myself, well, what do I want to choose? Do I want to choose to be unhappy or disgruntled, or do I want to choose peace, or do I want to create peace, or do I want to create connection?
Yeah.
And that's where it's interesting. Like, I would tell any of my clients or any of my potential clients, I said, if you want to improve your life, do yoga and meditate. Now, I rarely tell any of my clients to do yoga and meditate because, in my experience, like, they're not going to do
Mhm.
it unless they're already doing it,
Yeah.
and then we don't have to talk about it. And so, with that in mind, um, I do think there's a deeper meditation or an activity you can do that will give you the results of meditation without actually say meditating. And I think it's very specifically when you get triggered, to just work with that energy, just keep playing with it until you actually process it and get back to what I call like that zero state or objective state or like neutral state. And I think if anyone does that over time, they're going to have very equivalent results to what they would get from meditation. Because you mentioned you've done a lot of spiritual work. And let
Mhm.
me see, would you agree with this statement? The point of all the spiritual work, whatever you're doing, you're reading the books, you're going to therapy, you're getting coaching, you're doing trust falls or like whatever. The point of it all is to be as non-reactive as possible.
The point. So ask me that again. You said the point of meditation is to be
The the, the,
non-responsive.
the point of of all the spiritual work, no matter what is your chosen one, whether it's meditation, whether it's reading a book, whether it's like going to a men's group, whether you're going to like see a therapist, like whatever you can imagine, breath work. The point of it all, the end result that you're really going for, is to be non-reactive.
I get what you're saying. There's was it good? Because it called The Power of Now.
Hmm.
That's a
Yeah,
really popular
yeah.
book,
Eckhart Tolle.
and yes, his book is powerful. And then the book behind me, I mentioned, The Sea of the Soul. He focuses on intention, being conscious of your intentions with your actions and whatnot. Because each intention, it's not the act itself, but the intention behind the act that shapes your reality. That's what
Hmm.
he kind of talks about. So I think that you said, what was it? What was it again? You said it brings you to where?
So the result that you want from doing any of these different activities
Yeah.
is to be non-reactive.
I think that, and so with that being said, I think that a lot of these spiritual, like, I believe in soul ages,
Hmm.
and I get you understand the idea about how soul ages. Some souls are more mature than others. So I think that a lot of these books are put together to help people mature ultimately. And then
Hmm.
as you mature and you learn from these experiences, that's what's going to help you become non-reactive because you have a lot more understanding of the situation.
Yeah.
So I agree.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Man, we got deep into that one. Tell
Thank
me,
you for interrupting me from time to time. I need it.
I like this conversation. So tell me about your show, Conscious Coffee Chats.
Oh, well, so I'm not doing those anymore, but I was doing that with a friend of mine, Olivia. And so we were introduced by a mutual friend of ours, and she's very much into uh, Tantra, and she's also
Okay.
into energy. When I say energy, it can be any number of things. So specifically with her, she has this ability to let's say read your field and pull out information from there and share it with you, things you may not know about yourself, as well as really help you enjoy um, intimacy, say with a partner, through connecting your energies. And so I
Okay.
probably hardly explain what she's done. So, but what we would do is get together and just have uh, a talk, maybe drink some coffee while we are doing it on a variety of different subjects. So we talked about relationships. We talked a lot about energy. We talked a lot about spiritual development and what it can do for you and what it can't do for you. We talk about things about how it's sure it's so super important to elevate your consciousness, but at the same time to have a very grounded existence, to make sure as you're getting this esoteric knowledge or this knowledge that is let's say very high, very conscious, you're still able to take it and actually embody it in a way that it shifts your life. Because I think that's also one of the most important pieces of knowledge. Instead of it just be knowledge and information, I feel like the wisdom is when you're able to embody it and you're able to put it to use. Because I live in Miami, and there's a lot of what I call spiritual seekers down there. It's interesting. Like when I became a coach down there, I swear the next day, like I turned around and and also 90% of Miami became like coaches as well. It was a very humbling experience. But one of the things I also notice is that people love to talk about their spirituality and the high realms of
Yeah.
consciousness that they're able to achieve. But then you'll look on things and says, well, what's going on with the rent, or what's going on with your friendships,
Uh-huh.
or what's going on just with your own health. And so I think it's important to do both, to like reach the higher realms but also embody it. And so that's just an example of what we were doing on the conscious coffee chats. We wanted to give exposure to things that we were already having fun with.
I got a good question for you. What lesson did you learn from your last relationship?
What did I learn? I would say to work on my own masculinity. I'd say to work on my own leadership. Um, a while back, I said, or I asked you. I think it was more a statement. I said, like, leadership is a thankless job, and
Yes.
so um, I I realized, and I thought I knew it, but apparently I didn't. It's that the person who has the greatest ability, I think, to shape the relationship is the male, I think, in my opinion. Because you are in that leadership role, you are in that take charge role. You're taking the relationship someplace. And so I feel that I could have done that better. Some
Yeah.
things I saw, but I was passive about. Or some things I saw and I said, well, you need to sort that out. That's you. And it wasn't to say that I was wrong, but I definitely wasn't right, because the better thing was, hey, I notice this is going on. This is what I'm observing. These are my thoughts. What do you think? I think this would be better for us, or I think like you might want to consider this. What are your thoughts? And gently guide, gently lead in that way, as opposed to, well, I'll be better when you're better,
Mhm. Yeah,
type
yeah, yeah,
of thing.
yeah.
Yeah, and so I think the biggest takeaway was uh, not to take my eye off the ball, which is always just to be my best self. And if I'm doing that, more than likely the relationship is working out.
I 100% agree. All of us, all of us need to. Well, all of us are working on our leadership abilities.
Mhm.
Some of us are strong in other areas, but we all kind of we're emotional. We we have our feelings, and then you get kind of familiar with your partner, and as you get more familiar, you you start to lose some kind of degree of awareness or some level of self control.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
I do know as a man who's been in great relationships and relationships that ended, I do know that I was responsible because when a woman submits to you and decides you're her guy, you're the guy. You're the
Mhm.
guy. So
Absolutely.
she's completely open to you. She's relaxed. She's pleasant. With that being said, there's going to be things that happen within that relationship, and she'll unconsciously test you. And
Mhm.
if you don't handle those tests correctly, you're slowly like poisoning your relationship. You're not aware of it when it first happens, but
Yeah.
probably 6 months, a year, and it's more of these little tests that you don't
Yeah.
pass. Eventually, that clear water starts to turn gray, and
Mhm.
he's like, "What is going on? This is a completely different person." And in some cases, yes, the people do reveal themselves after the honeymoon phase. But I promise you, in a lot of cases, if you would have set boundaries once you saw it, like I think as a man, you should look forward to the first issue within the relationship because that's going to set the standard for the entire relationship.
Wow. I like that. Be on the watch for it. Expect that to show up and say, "Now's my time to lead and really set the tone."
And be excited about it. Like
Yeah,
when
yeah.
you go through the honeymoon phase, you guys are hanging out, dating, doing all kinds of things. Just know in the back of your mind, there's going to be a moment within this relationship where you're going to get tested. And then
Mhm.
this is where you actually set the trajectory of your relationship.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah. I think there's a lot of parallels between being in a relationship and having a job.
Mhm.
Because when you have a job, there's a job description that goes along with it a lot, and so you have these roles and responsibilities, and then a lot of times, many places, you're going to have quarterly or like biannual like performance reviews, and so you're constantly getting feedback on that. And so I think ideally a man in relationship is doing that for himself, and he says, well, let me really figure out what the roles and responsibilities are here, and let me check that with my partner to make sure like we're in
Yeah.
agreement that this is what I'm doing. Because that's the beautiful thing about couples as well, is like every relationship, it's unique in itself. Not everyone is having like the same agreements or need to have like the same thing, but you want you and your partner to be on the same page. And
Yeah.
so once you have that, not only should you be checking in with yourself to make sure that you're meeting the standard, so to speak, but you should be checking in with your partner and saying, so
Mhm.
I think this is what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And this is how I'm performing. Maybe even a scale of 1 to 10. And then, you can get feedback from your partner on that.
Mm.
And the, I think that the real test for a man, you're not trying to reach this higher level or be this better person for her. You're trying to be that for yourself.
Yes.
And I think that's the power of a woman in a relationship, because you said she'll test you. This is actually, I guess I would call it well documented, or this well known. Yes, women test men in relationship, so you can't want it to not happen. It's like saying like I don't want to get wet when I go outside and it's raining. You know,
Yeah.
it's like you're going to get wet, and so if you're going to be in a relationship, you're going to get tested. And so the thing is, well, knowing you're going to be tested, like, are you prepared, or how are
Mhm.
you preparing to be tested? You know.
Yes.
Uh,
Are you ready
so
for battle?
yeah.
you know, I want to share a story of a mess up that I had, in a relationship. This woman was like head over heels in love with me. Would cook me, you pick her up, she have a plate for you as she gets in the car,
Mm,
buy gifts. She was a good woman, right?
Yeah, sounds like.
And she was this way for about 7 months. And then one day she texts me out of the blue, I'm sorry, I can't do this. I can't be in this relationship. You're always working so hard and don't have time for me, and I can't do this. Right. So I was actually at the gym with my boys at the time, and I was like, oh my goodness, like where did this come from? We've never had one issue.
Yeah,
Right.
it's like I'm not gonna have a good workout
Yeah,
now.
exactly. Right. So exactly. So I with my boys, I finish my workout. They don't know nothing that's going on. I get in my car and then I'm driving. And this is when the mistake that I made because it changed the trajectory of our relationship. I called her and I tried to fix the relationship. I tried to convince her, like, hey, what's going on? I care about you, this and that, yada, yada, yada. I didn't, even though that was very small, and I actually went over to her place. We spoke and hugged and all that stuff. And it was cool. But what I really should have did was I should have told her, I should say, look, I enjoyed my time with you. Um, I value you as a person, as a partner. I was looking forward to building something with you. But if you don't feel like this is right for you, I wish you all the best and take care of something like that. It was just a test. That girl loved me. It was just a test. She wasn't going nowhere.
Yeah.
But once I did that, it was like because I was when you rewind your relationships, you start to think like when did things start to change, and that's when it changed.
That was
That's,
it.
that was when it changed. Just that little bit.
Yeah, it's like she said, "Let me see if I can get him."
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
even think it was conscious. I think that she was just crazy about me and just wanted. She didn't have as much control over me as she wanted, and it was giving her anxiety. And then she just like
Yeah, yeah. That's the thing. Like you said she may not have even have known, and that's the beauty and like the humor of the relationships and seeing how they progress because a woman is just has that wonderful ability to just test. And it's
Mhm.
not something that she goes to school for. It's just a nature of the relationship. And so, yeah, when a guy faces that, you can't be shook.
Yeah.
You have to say, oh, okay, and then the request is it's like she's always asking, are you still a safe option for me? Can I
Yes.
still feel secure with you? Can you? I'm looking to you for grounding. So can you be grounded when things feel chaotic?
And if you fail those tests, you're gonna start saying, "Can I find something better than you?" That's what it's gonna go to if you don't
Hmm.
if you don't pass those initial tests, because it'll
Yeah,
get worse.
yeah, yeah. And that's I feel like in relationships, like there's as you become more conscious, you do your work. You mentioned the spiritual work that you do. Maybe your tracking partners have done the same. I do think it changes over time. I don't think it ever completely alters, but I do think that testing becomes less, or maybe a certain set of expectations starts to morph in people once they realize that who they're looking for is actually themselves. They're looking for themselves to show up. They're
Mhm.
looking to have the best relationship with themselves. Once that starts to show up more and more, you 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 let go of having the expectation that your partner is going to deliver these things to you, and I feel it becomes a more, I guess the word I would say is maybe it's not the best, just a more honest relationship.